Yo, what up? It's your brother. And hopefully your friend, Big Hill. Rockwacey in the building. Black African power. Each one. Teach one. Alright, this morning, man, I'm reading my spiritual literature. You know, I just finished reading my Hosea. Then I picked up my Bible, you know what I mean? And you know, when I grab this Bible, you know, I try to come at it from a different perspective. I don't read it as a Christian reads it or as a Hebrew Israelite read it, because I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to religion. But I still read all spiritual texts that I can find. You know, I have a Gnostic Bible. I have the lost books of the Bible. I read the Quran. I study my spirituality. I read the dialects of Confucius. And there are some books that I haven't bought yet that I plan on getting that has to do with West African Yoruba and that religion, that African spirituality, I meant to say. And there's a couple of voodoo books I'm going to get. I just haven't gotten them yet. So, you know, when I read these books, I'm basically just trying to glean and extract from them the spirituality and the spiritual principles from them to help continue to evolve my thinking and to keep me resonating on a high vibration mentally. Because the way I used to live, you know what I'm saying, the brother used to be real wicked and evil. So I tried to keep my spiritual man fed more than the carnal man. You know, there's a balance that I try to strive for, but actually I want the spiritual man to always be bigger than the carnal man, because it's like two dogs. Whichever one you feed the most gets the biggest. And being though I lived a whole lot of years as carnal-minded, carnal man, I like the spiritual nature and the spiritual side better. It's more peaceful, less chaotic. So, you know, I study these books, man, to try to make sure that I continue to feed my spirituality. And even with in concerning this Bible, you know, I try to study the cultures and the people that these texts come from. You know, like I study India and Hinduism, or I study Islam and Arabia, or I study Rome and Israelite culture, because that's where these books come from. So once you study history and you get a proper understanding of the history, the real history, because the book itself, they mix falsehood with truth in the King James Version. But once you understand the true history, when you open these books, you can clearly see the lie. You can clearly see the mistranslation. You know what I'm saying? And you know what's going on. So, having said all that, you know, I'm going to open up to the 7th chapter of Mark. I was studying that. And I'm going to go through the whole chapter because it's relevant in context of what happened at the end, where the spiritual principle is that I really want to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this, and I'm going to, you know, embellish it, of course, because that's what I do when I'm reading these scriptures. My brother once told me he liked, when I was back in my Christian days, when I was coming out of Christianity, he used to tell me he loved the way I talk about the Bible because I make the people seem real. You know what I'm saying? Because I embellish it a little bit. But anyway, what's going on here in this chapter is like Jesus and his homies, his disciples, you know, the people he was teaching. You know, he's a spiritual teacher and he had people following him. They were caught eating by the Pharisees and the scribes. And the Pharisees and the scribes in biblical days were similar to the police in our day. They were upholders of the law of Moses. Just like the police in our day is upholders of the law of the state and of the city and the county. You know, so they were the religious leaders and they were upholders of the law. So when they saw Jesus, Yeshua, and his disciples eating without washing their hands first, they started questioning him on it, right? And I always liked when he encountered the Pharisees, because dude, it was like a revolutionary talking to the police. It's like when the police run up on a conscious brother, or more or something, you know, he started telling them about the law. You know what I'm saying? Because what they were doing, they were Europeans. See, the Pharisees and the scribes were Europeans that Rome had placed in power over the Hebrew Israelite culture. They were Europeans. The Hebrew Israelite were indigenous people, black folks, so to say. So when Jesus addressed these Pharisees and scribes, he was always calling them hypocrites. Like in Matthew, in the 23rd chapter, you read that chapter, he called them hypocrites, snakes, and vipers several times. He said, because y'all, man, trying to impose on us a law that y'all don't even uphold yourself. It's similar to like the police of today breaking the law to uphold the law. You want to tell us to obey the law, but yet you breaking the law to uphold it. You shooting people down in the street and murdering people, planting evidence on people, falsely arresting people, lying. You know what I'm saying? And but you want us to obey the law. Now you a hypocrite. You need to obey the law that you're sworn to uphold. Then we can respect you in that uniform. But anyway, but yeah, so that's what this is about, and I'm gonna go through it right quick. It says, then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together with him, having come from Jerusalem. Now when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is, unwashed hands, they found fault. Hey, yo, why y'all eating that bread you ain't wash your hands? For they wash their hands, and for the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding to the tradition of the elders. You know, we do that today, man. We hold to tradition a lot. You know what I'm saying? We hold to the traditions of our parents and grandparents. But the thing about now, as opposed to times past, is that we live in an information age, and we can examine these traditions and find out what these traditions are rooted in. Like these holidays, like Christmas and all these, like even Thanksgiving that just passed. We know that that holiday is rooted in the genocide of a people, so why are you celebrating it? You know what I'm saying? Christmas is a pagan holiday where when most, matter of fact, damn near all of these holidays that we celebrate is rooted in European paganism. That when Constantine instituted Christianity as a state religion, he wasn't a Christian, so he instituted a lot of European pagan worship into Christianity. And black folks still doing that today. So you holding to the traditions of men, and you're not examining the tradition to find out what it's rooted in. See, when I done the knowledge and started examining the tradition, I found out that a lot of what I was living and practicing wasn't rooted in African culture. So I simply dismissed it because I live from an African worldview, not a European one. I'm an African man with an African mind, not an African man with a European mind that holds to European culture. At least I do the best I can to divest myself of the colonialism that they placed on us. But anyway, when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And there are many other things that they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitcher, coppers, vessels, and couches. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your disciples walk not according to the elders? Like, yo, why you not following our rules, but eat bread with unwashed hands? And then he answered and said, well did Isaiah prophesy well of you hypocrites. See, he just called them right there, and you some hypocrites. He said, because the people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. Teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You know, it's like, that's one of the reasons, man, why I left the church. And because I was caught up in that hypocrisy. And I still see it now. I saw it a lot then. I still see it now, where people like to, especially church folk, like to show these false shows of holiness and try to act in ways that they know they don't live, just for the sake of impressing upon people that this is the kind of person I am. You want to act holy and act like you're religious, but in your heart you know you're not. See, I used to do that. I'd get around certain people and want to act religious, but I know, man, look, man, you don't live this stuff, you're just acting. And I backed away from that type of hypocrisy. One thing about me today is that my behavior is consistent. You're never going to see me acting in a way that I know that I don't live, or acting in a manner that's not congruent with who I really am. My integrity won't allow me to do that. You know what I'm saying? Now, you might see different aspects of my personality. You might see the law of polarity in effect in my personality. One day you might see me feeling some kind of way, mean, arrogant, egotistical, and the next day you might see me benevolent, loving, and caring. That's just the law of polarity. It's different vibrations on the same plane of existence. So, you know, that's the only difference that you'll see in me. You ain't never seen me gonna be showing no false shows of holiness like I'm holier than thou, and I know I'm not. But anyway, it says, for laying aside the commandments of God, you hold true to the traditions of men. This is what he's telling them Pharisees. You know, God say this, but you throw that out the window. And you hold to the traditions of what these people who put you in power say, the Roman Empire. And today, like when I see that holding, for laying aside the commandment of God, see, I already know that the word God wasn't even around before the 10th century. If you do the etymology on the word, that word came about in the 900s. So when I see laying aside the commandment of God, my mind refigures that into laying aside universal law and the natural order of things, because that's what I subscribe to. So I can't hold on to a tradition of a man, a preacher, so to say, or a spiritual leader, because he says what he's just saying has a divine decree on it, but yet it goes against universal law and natural order. You know what I'm saying? I can't follow you with what you teaching going against universal law, because to me that's the same as laying aside the commandments of God, because to me universal law and natural order is divinity, and that's what I subscribe to. So, you know, that's the way my mind refigures that. For the washing of pitchers and cups and many other such things you do. So I'm going to skip this section right here. Then when he had called all the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand that there is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile him. When he has entered a house away from the crowd, when he had entered into a house, you know, when him and his boys went on the inside, his boys asked him concerning the parable that he was teaching. He said to them, are you without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him, because it does not enter in his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated? And he said, what comes out of a man, that what defiles a man, from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, and the evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within. So to me, that's what the spiritual principle I want to hone in on is, because what good does it do for me to go wash my hands and then take them same hands and go choke somebody to death? You know, like I said, out of the heart of men come murders. No, I'm not saying don't be clean. That's not what I'm saying. You know, if you go in the bathroom and wipe your ass, you need to wash your hands before you start head toward the food. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying don't practice hygiene to keep your body clean. I'm not trying to lessen the value of cleanliness, but what I'm trying to say is the hypocrisy of washing your hands, and then you take your hand and they go hit your wife, or you take your hand and you want to knock your brother out. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, evil thoughts. Like back in the day when I used to roll around in the street full of self-hatred, just looking for a reason to hurt somebody. Looking at people with this disdain. Just give me a reason. Now I'm going to take you up out of here. That's evil thoughts. Adulteries. We know adulteries. You know, you married, but you don't respect your wife enough to just keep your body sacred to her. You want to spread it around with various other women. Fornicating, you know what I'm saying? Just running around trying to screw everything that's screwed back, not having enough self-respect to possess your vessel when sanctification and honor set aside for your special one person. You just around here fucking all willy-nilly, you know what I'm saying? So, and then, you know, adulteries, fornications, murders, theft, you know, stealing, going on your job, stealing all them folks stuff, just being a thief. Every time you touch something, it stick to your hand, you got to take it with you. You know, covetousness, You know what I'm saying? Wanting things that other people have, instead of having the desire to admire it and then go get it for yourself. You want it for them. You want to cover the man's wife, cover his car, cover his property. You know what I'm saying? We understand what covetousness is and all these things. So to me, that's where the hypocrisy is, man. You know what I'm saying? Is where you want to follow the traditions of men. Like he was saying, like, you know, it's not what comes out. It's not anything out here on the externally that makes you impure and unrighteous. It's what's in your heart. So what we need to do, man, is examine our heart and examine our motives and our desires. Because if our motives, if the root of our motives and the root of our desires is impure and unrighteous, anything that we yield from those desires and that motivation is going to be unrighteous in its nature. That's just how it works. You can't get oranges. You can't plant prunes and get oranges. You know what I'm saying? You can't plant an apple seed and grow grapefruits and shit. You know what I'm saying? That's the part I want to emphasize, is that we need to examine our hearts, the viscera, our minds. And we need to try to find out, man, what is our motivations and our desires rooted in. Because once we can pinpoint that, we'll know what they're going to yield. So if your motivation and your desires is rooted in deceit, evilness, unrighteousness, you need to chop that right there, because anything come from that is not going to be good. So that's all, man. I just wanted to say, man, while I was going through that. I'm about to run out of time on this thing, and I really don't want to make a part 2 video. So yeah, man, that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at our own hypocrisy, and we're going to examine our hearts and our minds, man, to make sure that we try to aspire to some kind of purity and righteousness in the way we live our lives. Because if we do that, we'll be better for one another. You know what I'm saying? You won't want to harm your brother, man, if you coming from a place of righteousness. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, that's Big Hill once again. Each one teach one. Peace. I'm out.